All right, guys, very good morning. Welcome back to my channel. This is Mallikarjun here. So in this today's demonstration, I'm going to show you easiest or the quickest way to build your standby or the DR database for the standalone servers. So, this is the steps. These are the commands I'm going to execute on my lab here. I have opened my production server here, and also I opened my DR servers here. Whatever this is in red color or my DR server, whatever you are seeing these two, black color, it's my production server. So what I'm going to demonstrate today, there are multiple ways you can quickly set up your, DR. What I'm going to demonstrate, I'm just going to uh, set up like this is node 1, and then this is my node 2, node 1 and node 2. I have node 1 called Oracle DB server name, and then I have a node 2 called Oracle standby. So I have a database here on the production side. The database name is ORCL, and then I'm going to build ORCL standby. And then I'm going to build this particular standby database. I'm going to start the replication from primary to standby. So the first way I'm going to use something called, active database duplication. So I'm going to use without backup directly by reading this production database, I can build my standby database. And the second method is I'm going to take a backup of my production database. I'm going to generate some backup copies. These are my database backups. With the help of these backups, I'm going to build my standby database. So both the methods are valid. Whichever method you feel comfortable, you can build your standby database and then start the replication. Right. So that's the simplest way what I can illustrate here. So let's get into my lab. Right. So primary server ORCL, which is running under 19C Oracle Home, which is on Oracle DB server, and standby ORCL standby, what we're going to build, which is on again 19C Oracle Home, which is on Oracle standby. SB stands for standby, DB stands for primary, right? So primary server side, I'm going to do the quick check, ps-ef grep smon, right? So I have ORCL, and I'm going to check my host name, right? So Oracle DB local domain.com. So this is my Oracle DB. I have one more session here, and then I'm going to locate for my ORCL alert log. Locate alert underscore ORCL dot log. So this is my alert log, tail hyphen F. So I'm just gonna look for this alert log here. And then on the standby side also, I'm gonna check here. So nothing is running here. It's a brand new server. Host name again, Oracle standby local domain.com, right? So on the primary server, I'm gonna set the environment .ornv ORCL, set the Oracle database SID and Oracle home, and then get grep for the environment details here. I have set SID, Oracle base, Oracle home, everything is set here. And then I'm going to connect to my database. I can verify these two parameters. This is the first check. Pre-checks on the primary and standby server. That's what we're doing now. I'm going to connect to my database primary side. I'm going to check whether primary database in archive log mode or not. This is the command. It's enabled archive log mode. If it is not in archive log mode, shut down your database, start in mount mode, and enable the archive log mode, alter database archive log mode. Right, and then make sure that your database primary database is in force logging is enabled. So force logging is enabled. If not, again you can enable it's a online parameter without shutting down your database. You can do alter database force logging, right? So that's a pre-checks. And the second check is your listeners and tnsnames.ora file on primary and standby side. So on the primary side, I'm going to go into Oracle Home Network Admin, exit from here, right? So network admin, and then do cat tnsname.ora file. And you can see I have ORCL primary database running under Oracle DB, which is running under 1522 port, and then service name ORCL. And also I kept my standby service name here, ORCL standby, which is running under Oracle standby, which we are going to build now. and then which is again same port 1522, and service name is ORCL standby. So I kept both primary and standby TNS entries. That's the one thing. Cat listener.ora file. Check the listener.ora file on the primary side. So your listener ORCL base and your listener.orcl is the listener name on the primary side, which is running on the server Oracle DB server with port 1522. That's the one thing you can verify your listener and TNS files on both primary side and the standby side. So I'm going to check my listener status on the primary side, lsnrctl, right? This is a command lsnrctl status listener.orcl, which is listening with this particular ORCL service name and ORCL database, which is ready state, right? So my database is registered with the listener and it is listening. And the standby side also, I'm just going to set the environment to ORCL standby, and then do env grep env pipeline grep ORCL or like ORA. So you can see ORCL standby, Oracle base, Oracle home is set here, and then I can go to my Oracle home TNS admin location on the standby side. I can verify the same thing, listener file first. So in this listener file, I'm going to set up a static listener registration for my database, right? So you might have already aware what is static listener registration and dynamic listener registration on the primary side. So I don't have anything on my listener file here, right? So just listener details. So my database is got registered and which is in ready state. So it's a dynamic registration. On the standby side, if you see listener underscore ORCL standby, listener name followed by your host, that is Oracle standby, and then followed by your port 1522. This is your listener entry and listener base, and then this is your database details. So you're going to forcefully registering your database details in the listener file so that your listener, the moment you start your listener, your database is details are registered with your listener. That's called a static registration, and the database details will be in unknown state, right? That's the one thing. That's a static registration. I'm doing it for my database details with the listener file itself. That's the one thing. Second thing is again TNS file. So you can see my standby TNS details, my primary TNS details, both are set here on the standby side as well. And then if I check my listener status on the standby side, right? So my ORCL standby service, my database ORCL standby instance is registered with the listener already with the unknown state because the database is not running here, but still you got your services are registered here because of static registration, because you kept all the database details in the listener file. That's called static registration, right? So your listener is up and running and your database service and database instance both are registered with unknown status, right? So that's on the standby side. Yet on the third point is verify tnsping is working on both primary and standby. So on the primary side, to tnsping ORCL, so OK response, and tnsping standby database, again OK response, that's good. And the same thing on the primary side, on the standby side, I'm able to ping my production database from the standby server. Again, tnsping, my standby TNS. So that's also TNS pings are working for both primary and standby from both the primary server as well as standby server. Right now, copy primary password file to standby. So if I go to my primary server, Oracle Home DBS location, right, and then my password file, right? So ORA PW ORCL, the primary database password file on the primary server. So you can use the SCP, copy that one to your standby server and under DBS location with the standby name, ORCL standby. So if I go to my standby server here under Oracle Home, if you can see this one, Oracle Home, DBS location, and then already I copied my password file from the primary to standby and then I renamed here. Right, so that's your copy password file. That's the fourth step. Fifth step is create standby init file or pfile and start the standby instance in nomount mode. So on the standby side, I'm going to create init ORCL standby.ora with only one or two parameters, right? So this is a parameter I'm going to create under standby server here, right? So you see init ORCL standby.ora, it has only two parameters, ORCL DB name and DB unique name is ORCL standby. Only two parameter I kept here on this init file. That as simple as that. So no need to put any parameters, just that, right? And then set the environment and then start your standby instance in nomount. Right, so ORCL standby, Oracle base, Oracle home, everything is set, and connect to your standby instance, which will be connected to idle instance. And I'm going to start up nomount using that parameter file which you created here with only two parameters. I'm going to start in nomount here. Right, so your database is getting started here, and I'm going to go to the second tab here. I'm going to locate alert underscore ORCL standby.log. So this is my standby log here, tail-f. Right, so my standby is started here, started in nomount here. Right, that's one thing. And verify your password connectivity working fine on both the primary server as well as standby server to both primary database as well as standby database. On the primary side, SQL plus sys password @ORCL as sysdba. Right, on the primary site, I'll go to primary site, connect to my primary database, able to connect. I can verify database instance name and status. Right, so ORCL, which is in open mode, that's well and good. That's primary database I'm able to connect. SQL plus sys password ORCL standby database. I'm going to try to connect to my standby database from the primary server. Able to connect, check the instance status. It should be just started because you just started in nomount. Right, ORCL standby, which is started. It just started. Right, so that's fine. Like on the primary side, primary server, I'm able to connect to both the databases. Go to standby database, standby server, and then try the same thing. SQL plus sys password your production database. Try to connect your production database from the standby server. Right, able to connect. Query instance name status from each other instance. Right, so ORCL open mode. Right, that's fine. You are able to connect to your primary server from the standby primary database from the standby server. Next command is SQL plus sys password ORCL standby. Try to connect your standby server from the standby database from the standby server. Again, run this instance name status, which should be ORCL standby started. It means your password file working fine on both the primary server as well as standby server. Right, and the seventh step is set standby parameter at your primary database and also create your standby redologs. The primary database server, on the primary database, you can just check your DB unique name. That's the first parameter. These are the parameter you're going to set it. One is your DB unique name, log archive config, log archive destination 1, log archive destination 2, log archive destination 2 with the service name, and file server file client, and standby file management auto, and DB file name convert and log file name convert. These are the parameter you're going to set it. There are almost 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 parameters. Once you set this 10 parameter, that's it. So I can show you all those parameters on the primary site here. Primary site and my primary database I'm going to connect. This DBA. Show parameter DB unique name ORCL, well and good. And then show parameter log archive config. Log archive config should be pointing to DG config, primary database, and standby database. And then log archive destination 1, that's your FRA location. Log archive destination 1, which is using pointing to DB recovery file destination, that's your FRA. And log archive destination should be pointing to your standby service. Log archive destination 2, pointing to service, standby service, async mode, valid for online log file, primary role, DB unique name is ORCL standby, right? That's your standby service name. And then your file servers and file client, file server and file client. File client is pointing to ORCL, file server is pointing to ORCL standby. And your standby file management set to auto, verify that one. Standby file management set to auto. And then your DB file name convert and log file name convert, your DB file name convert, or ORCL to ORCL standby, and your log file name convert to same ORCL to ORCL standby, ORCL to ORCL standby, and then FRA ORCL to FRA ORCL standby. Right, these are the 10 parameters you have to set it on the primary side, and you can verify your redolog files on the primary side. Right, so you can see you have 3 redolog groups, both are inactive, third group is currently in use. And then you can query this, you can add the standby redolog files by using this alter database add. So already added standby redologs here. So these are your standby redologs, right? So currently it's all unassigned or unused. On the primary side, you don't need a standby redologs. Right, so now let's go back here. I'm going to take RMAN backup here from the primary database. So take primary database backup, connect your RMAN, run allocate channel 1, channel 2, cross check backup, cross check archelog all, delete no prompt, archelog all completed, and backup as a backup set, incremental level 0, database plus archelog plus current control file, and then all those things. So I'm just going to run this command here, connect to RMAN target on the primary side here. RMAN connected to RMAN target slash. I'm going to run this command. So that's going to take my RMAN backup. That's it. Let's go on. Right. So it started taking my archelog backup here. Archelog backups are done. Started incremental level 0. This is your archelog backup. Incremental level 0 backup. I'm going to take under U01 backup. So database backup completed. Again, it started taking archelog backup, your control file backup, and control file and SP file auto backup. Everything is done here. You're gonna go into your backup location and then validate the backups. So these are the backups. You can copy it to your remote server, SCP, Oracle, your target server. I'm gonna copy it to my standby server, all these backups. And so if I go to my standby server, CD U01 backup, right, all the backups are coming here now. Right, so done. It's still copying. Done. Okay, done. So after that, I'm going to copy my control file and SP file auto backup, whatever it has backed up here. This is my control file and SP file auto backup. I'm going to copy that control file and SP file auto backup as well to the same location. Done. So copying done. All backups are transferred to your standby server. And now build your standby database. That's your 9th step. So as I said, I'm going to build. One is active database without backup. One is with the backup. I'm going to build the standby database. Right. So first thing is option 1, standby build using active database duplication without backup. For that, I'm going to connect RMAN, my production server, RMAN auxiliary, my standby server from my standby server here. So just going to connect RMAN target over CL. So that's going to connect. You can see RMAN target sys password ORCL. If you can see it connected to ORCL database with this DB ID. Now I'm going to connect auxiliary sys password to my standby database. Right. So again, standby database and primary database having the same DB name because it's a DR, right? So we're going to use a production database. The DB name will be same between your prod and DR or prod and standby. So connected to your ORCL standby database, which is not mounted, which is just started in no mount mode, right? So it is connected both primary database as well as standby database. Now I'm going to use this simple command run. You're going to allocate 4 channels to read your primary database and 4 channels to restore your standby database. You're going to directly read my primary database and then from the primary database, you're going to restore it here without backup. That's what you're going to allocate 4 channels for my primary, 4 channels for my standby. And then command is duplicate target database for standby from active database. And then SP file, I'm going to convert parameter ORCL as a ORCL standby and DB name ORCL, DB nickname ORCL standby, and the DB file name convert, log file name convert, whatever that ORCL, we're going to convert it as a ORCL standby. And whatever the ORCL online log, we're going to convert it as the oversell online log, right? So that's a log file name convert and db file name convert. Let's go ahead and then run this command in this particular session. Right, so you can see I allocated 4 channels for my primary, 4 channels for my standby, and then started restoring my SP file. You can see I started restoring my SP file, and then we're gonna bounce my database here. Once it has bounced, we're gonna start using my standby database using that SP file, whatever it has restored here, whatever it is restoring here SP file. Right, so it is shutting down and starting my database now here. Right, so database started, and now started with the control file restore. You can see control file restore done here. If you see, it is restored to ORCL, that one, ORCL, WARA data, ORCL standby, past recovery area, ORCL standby, control file restored, and then your data files are getting restored here. Data file using that particular without backup, directly you're going to read your production database and restore here. So your restore completed here, and then it is started with the switch data file copy, and then recovery is done. Like recovery will not do it, just it will restore all your data files, and then it will release your database channels. So these are like warnings. Since you are enable standby file management automatic, these are like ignorable. So finish duplicate database, that's done. That's a one way, right? Like, by just running this command without backup, directly connect to your primary database, pull that all the data file, and restore it on the standby side. Option 2 is standby build using uh, standby build. Why I mentioned using here? Standby build with the backup based database duplication. So standby build using. So I can say using or with whatever keyword you can mention. Standby build using backup based database duplication. With the help of backup, whatever the backup we took and copied to standby side, we're going to use those backups and we rebuild it. So since this particular standby database built here, I'm going to drop that again. Again, like just do this one. I'm just going to kill that instance. Kill -9. Done. So go to U01 app, Oracle, Ora data, and then go to your Oracle standby, and then remove all the data files. Star. Done. So, and then now I'll go to my fast recovery area. So fast recovery area, and then go to your ORCL standby, and then I'm going to remove everything from here as well. Done. So your standby database, whatever you just restored using this method 1, active database duplication, I just removed everything. Again, I'll redo everything. I'm going to start my database using that init file. Where is that init file? Where we started that one? I'll go back all the way top here. Okay, this one here. I'm gonna start my database again using that init file. Init file is just 2 names, right? DB name and DB nickname. Right. So I'm just gonna set it again here on standby side. Connected to idle instance. I'm gonna start the database again with the nomount mode using that dummy init file what we created. As you can see, your standby database is getting started here in nomount. Right. So database started here, and now I'm going to use the second method. So the second methods are again straightforward. Go to option 2 here. Option 1, what we just build on active database duplication. Option 2, using that backups. So now I need to connect RMAN auxiliary sys password at that ORCL. I need to connect to standby database alone. You don't need to connect to primary. Here we use connected to primary as well as standby, and then you built active database duplication. Here I no need to connect to my primary because I'm not using primary database. I'm just using the backup to restore my standby. So I'm just going to connect to my standby alone here. Exit from here, connect. So connected to your auxiliary database ORCL, which is not mounted. Now this command run allocate 4 channels to restore your standby, and then duplicate target database for standby. SP file, again same parameter value convert. ORCL is the ORCL standby. DB name, DB nickname, DB file name convert, log file name convert. Backup location, you are going to give that backup location. That's it. Right. So their active database duplication, here's the backup location. Run this one here. Done. Again, same thing. Allocated 4 channels, restoring your SP file, and then the SP file restored, and then it's going to shut down my database, start my database using that SP file, and then restore the control file, restore data files, and then done. Right, so you can see all these messages on the alert log here. So instance shutdown done because it has restored my SP file here, and then it's going to start my database using that SP file. Right, so connected to auxiliary, now it is starting. Right, here database instance started, and then now it is restoring the control file 1, control file 2, using this particular backup. So it has restored both the control files here, right? And then it is started restoring your data files. Right, so restoring all the data files here, well and good. Right, so it has restored, and it must switch all the data files to copy. Right, again, these errors are ignorable when you enable this auto or standby file management auto. The restore duplicate restore database for standby is completed, done. So very simple, right? Right, so your restore is done using this option too. Now we need to do that log shipping, right? So I showed you demo on that active database duplication, backup based duplication, right? Both I showed. Now I need to enable this log shipping. I need to verify whether logs, whatever generating here, are shipping to standby or not. That's your step number 10, I can say. I can mention step number 10, enable log shipping. Right, so that's your step number 10. I forgot to mention that. Right, enable your step number, enable log shipping. So SQL plus SSDBA on the standby side, connect your standby database, check your name, database role from either the database. Right, so name is ORCL because the database name is same between prod and DR, and which is in physical standby. The same command if you run it on the primer side. Right, sorry, SQL plus SSDBA. So ORCL, which is primary role, right? That's well and good. Check for your file service here on the standby side. So file client, which is pointing to your ORCL standby, and the file server. So it should be opposite, whatever you are seeing on the primer side. So file client is your database name itself. File server is opposite server. Same thing on the standby side. File client, the database itself, that's correct. And file server should point to your primary server. So you can set alter system set file server equal to your primary server. Right, and then show parameter file. Right, so your database name itself and your production name itself. So that's fine. That's it. And then now you can gonna start your MRP. Alter database recover manage standby database disconnect from session. This is your MRP apply. Alter database recover manage standby database using current log file disconnect from session. That's your real time apply. Anything is fine. You can use any command. I'm just gonna start it my MRP on the standby side. You can see on the alert log here. Right, MRP started here. Now what we can do, we can on the primer side, we had to enable that log archive destination state so that it will start sending the archive log. So this is enabled. It will be deferred and you can enable once you set up your DR. So I can just go ahead and then enable this one. That alter system enabled in the alert log. Right, so going on. Right, so it started syncing here, like in transit. The moment you see in transit on the standby side, it means both the primary and standby are in sync now. That's so good. That's a great thing. And then this is a step number 11. verify your primary and standby sync status. So, on the primary side, I'm gonna do this archive log list. Right, so this is your oldest sequence number, and I'm gonna use that sequence number here, and then I can do some log switch here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5. Right, so 5 log switch. So you can run this command on the primary side. So right, it says acknowledgement has not yet been granted here. That's fine. So I'll go to standby side. Already connected here. So you can run the same query. The archive sequence number greater than this 6370. It should applied here on the standby side. Right, you can see in memory, in memory, in memory, in memory. It means it is applying. It's already received on the standby side and it is applying. So you can see the latest archive number is 6376 and on the standby side 6376, which is applying now. In few minutes it get apply. Whatever it is in memory, in few minutes it get apply. And the standby alert log, the moment you see in transit, it means your standby is in sync with your primary, right? Yeah, so now you can see it is getting applied equal to yes. So 7.5 it is applied equal to yes, and 7.6 it will be like applied equal to yes in few minutes. Right, so it's all in memory. So again, I can do one more log switch. Alter system switch log file. 1, 2, 3. Right, 3 is enough. So 76, 3 log switches become 77, 78, 79. So let's run the same query again. Right, so after 76, 77, 78, 79. If I go to my standby side, right, again 78, 76, 77, 78, 79, everything is came, already started applying on the standby side. Again, alert log, if you see in transit, 79 is already came and applied, and then in transit. So 80, it is in transit. It means it's waiting for the next sequence, that is 80. Right. So easiest way to build your standby. These are the 11 steps. You can use them and then you can build your standby database. All right, guys. So thank you. So if you need more videos and if you missed out my previous videos, always go back to my channel and you can refer them. Thank you, guys.